The City Beneath the Turning Sky. Chapter 8. The Pulse. Night settled slowly across the spiral city. Rain drifted through the narrow streets and winding bridges in silver curtains, turning lantern light into blurred pools of gold upon wet stone. Far below the highest towers, merchants pulled canvas covers across their stalls. Workshop doors closed. Windows glowed warmly against the darkness. The city prepared itself for sleep. Yet even in sleep, the spiral city never truly rested. It breathed. It ticked. It turned. Above the rooftops, the great clocks continued their endless movements. Tower clocks, bridge clocks, market clocks, thousands upon thousands of gears moving together beneath stone, brass, and iron. Their rhythm flowed through the city like a second heartbeat, a sound so familiar that most people no longer heard it. It had always been there, the steady turning of time itself. Velen sat alone within his small chamber high inside the Hall of Clockmakers. A brass lantern burned softly beside him. Its warm glow illuminated scattered papers spread across his desk. Notes, sketches, fragments copied from the hidden ledgers. The symbol of the 3 interwoven spirals stared back at him from the page. He had drawn it dozens of times, yet it remained as mysterious now as when he had first seen it. Beyond the rain-streaked window, lightning flickered silently behind distant clouds. For a brief moment, the towers emerged from the darkness, then vanished again. Velen leaned back in his chair. Sleep felt impossible. Every answer seemed to create another question. The keepers of the pattern, the fracture, the missing name, the order, the first question. His thoughts moved in circles, like gears turning without ever reaching a destination. A sigh escaped him. He pushed away from the desk. Perhaps fresh air would help. Perhaps nothing would. He crossed the room. Rain whispered softly against the glass. The floor creaked beneath his boots. The lantern flame flickered. Then he stopped. His hand hovered above the brass door handle. Something felt wrong. Not dangerous. Not immediate, just wrong. A strange unease settled over him. The feeling was difficult to describe, like entering a familiar room and finding something missing, like hearing a song with one note removed, like waking from a dream and knowing something important had been forgotten. Velen frowned. He stood completely still, listening. The storm continued outside. Rain, wind, distant thunder, the hall settling around him. Yet beneath those sounds, there was an absence, a hollow space, a silence. His heartbeat quickened. Slowly, understanding crept into his thoughts. The clocks. He could not hear the clocks. The realization struck him so suddenly that he almost laughed. Impossible. There were always clocks. Always. Even now he should be able to hear them. The distant turning of gears. The soft ticking carried through stone corridors, the great mechanisms hidden throughout the hall. The sound had accompanied every moment of his life. Yet now, nothing. No ticking, no gears, no rhythm. Only silence, deep, complete, unnatural. The hairs on the back of his neck rose. He opened the door. The corridor beyond was empty, but he was not the only one who had noticed. Doors were opening all along the hall. Clockmakers stepped into the corridor. Apprentices emerged from their rooms. Faces appeared in doorways. Confused, concerned, listening. Everyone listening. Nobody speaking. The silence had become impossible to ignore. Then somewhere below, a voice shouted. Another answered. Footsteps echoed through the building. The city was waking. Not to the storm, to the absence. Velen moved quickly toward the stairwell. Others followed. Together they climbed toward one of the upper balconies overlooking the city. Rain swept across the stone arches. The night air felt cold against his skin. Below, hundreds of people had gathered in the streets. Lanterns flickered in the darkness. Faces turned upward. Questions passed from person to person. No answers followed. Above them all, the great clock towers stood motionless, frozen, silent, dead. For the first time in living memory, the spiral city had stopped. And then the world held its breath. The world held its breath. For one impossible moment, The spiral city became utterly still. Rain continued to fall. Water cascaded from rooftops. Wind whispered through narrow streets. Yet beneath those sounds lay something vast, something waiting. The silence deepened. The people gathered below seemed frozen in place. Thousands of eyes fixed upon the motionless clock towers. No one moved. No one spoke. Even the storm appeared reluctant to disturb the moment. Then the stone beneath Velen's boots trembled. Not violently, not enough to throw anyone from their feet. Just enough, a faint vibration, a ripple passing through the foundations of the city. The movement spread outward, across rooftops, across bridges, across towers. Lantern flames shivered. Rainwater gathered upon the balcony rail burst into perfect circles, every drop dancing to a rhythm that nobody could hear. Yet everyone could feel. A strange pressure filled the air. Velen's chest tightened. The sensation reminded him of standing beside the sea during a storm, or watching lightning strike moments before the thunder arrived. A feeling of anticipation, of immense power approaching. Then it came. The pulse. Velen felt it before he understood it. A vast movement passed through the city. Ancient, slow, immense. Not a sound, not exactly. Something deeper. A resonance, a heartbeat so large it seemed impossible. The pulse moved through stone, through iron, through water, through flesh, through memory. For a single moment the entire world seemed transparent, and suddenly Velen saw them. Threads, countless silver threads, everywhere, stretching between rooftops, running through walls, crossing bridges, flowing through streets, woven through every living person standing below, millions upon millions of luminous strands. The city no longer appeared built. It appeared woven, alive. The silver lines shimmered beneath the rain like veins beneath skin. Some glowed brightly. Others flickered. Some stretched far beyond the city itself, disappearing into the darkness beyond the horizon. Velen stared in wonder. The sight stole the breath from his lungs. The entire spiral city had become a tapestry of light, a living pattern, a vast interconnected design hidden beneath ordinary sight. For a heartbeat that was not his own, he understood. Not with words, with feeling. Everything was connected, every choice, every movement, every life, every memory, threads within threads, patterns within patterns. Then the vision vanished. The city returned. Stone, rain, lanterns, darkness, as though nothing had happened. Yet Velen knew. He had seen something real. Something hidden. Something impossible. Around him, cries erupted from the streets below. People staggered. Some dropped to their knees. Others clutched at walls or railings. A child began crying somewhere in the crowd. Questions echoed through the storm. Fear spread faster than understanding. Then all at once, every clock in the city began moving again. The sound returned like a tidal wave. Thousands of gears turning simultaneously. Thousands of pendulums swinging. Thousands of clocks reclaiming their rhythm. The city exhaled. The familiar heartbeat returned. Yet nothing felt familiar anymore. Velen turned. Master Oren stood beneath the archway leading back into the hall. Rain drifted through the open stonework around him. The old clockmaker's face had gone pale. Not the pale of illness, not the pale of age. Recognition. The expression of a man who had just encountered a ghost he had spent decades trying to forget. For a moment, Velen barely recognized him. The wise certainty that normally surrounded Oren seemed to have vanished. In its place stood an old man carrying the weight of a memory he had never shared. Velen crossed the balcony. "Master." Oren didn't respond. His eyes remained fixed upon the city, upon the clock towers, upon the storm, upon something only he seemed able to see. Master Oren. At last the old man looked toward him. The fear in his eyes struck harder than the pulse itself. Velen had never seen it before. Not once. What was that? The question hung between them. The rain continued to fall. Thunder rolled somewhere beyond the city walls. For several moments Oren remained silent. Then he closed his eyes. Slowly, painfully, as though opening an old wound. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. "I hoped I would never feel it again." The words sent a chill through Velen. You've felt it before? The old clockmaker opened his eyes. For a moment they seemed impossibly distant, lost somewhere far beyond the city, far beyond the storm, far beyond the present. Then he shook his head. Once, slowly. No. A pause. Long enough to make the answer worse. Then, I remembered it. Lightning flashed across the turning sky. For a brief moment the entire city was illuminated in silver light. And deep beneath the spiral city, far below stone, far below memory, something stirred once more. Something ancient, something waiting, and for the first time in generations, it was awake. The city attempted to continue. By dawn, merchants reopened their stalls. Bridges filled once more with travelers and workers. The bells rang. The clocks turned. Life resumed, at least on the surface. Beneath the routine, something had changed. Everyone felt it. No one wished to speak about it. Velen noticed it immediately. Conversations stopped when strangers approached. Voices lowered. Eyes drifted toward the clock towers, then quickly away again. Rumors spread through the city like mist. Some claimed the storm had caused it. Others blamed failing mechanisms. Others whispered older explanations. Dangerous explanations. Stories that had not been spoken aloud for generations. The city continued breathing, but its rhythm had become uncertain. Velen slept little. When he closed his eyes, he saw silver threads. Not dreams. Memories. The image remained perfectly clear. Millions of luminous strands stretching through the city, connecting everything, everyone. He found himself drawing them repeatedly. Margins of notebooks, scraps of parchment, the backs of diagrams. The silver web returned again and again. Each attempt captured less than he remembered. The real thing had been too vast, too beautiful, too impossible. On the third night after the pulse, sleep finally came, and with it, something else. Velen stood within darkness. Not ordinary darkness, a darkness so immense it seemed endless. There was no ground, no sky, no city, only silence. Then a single silver thread appeared, floating before him, glowing softly, beautifully. The thread drifted away, slowly, inviting, waiting. Velen followed. More threads emerged. Hundreds, thousands, millions, stretching into impossible distances, interweaving, separating, rejoining. A tapestry larger than worlds, a pattern too vast to comprehend. He felt himself standing inside something alive. Not alive as people were alive. Alive as forests were alive. As oceans were alive. As storms were alive. Something ancient. Something aware. Then came the pulse. Closer this time. Not beneath him. Not around him. Within everything. The threads trembled. The darkness seemed to breathe. And far away, something moved. Velen woke violently. His heart hammered against his ribs. Moonlight spilled through the rain-streaked window. His room stood exactly as he had left it. The lantern, the desk, the sketches, the notebooks. Yet the feeling remained. The sensation of having witnessed something real. Not a dream. A place. The following morning he found Oren already awake. The old clockmaker sat alone within the workshop. A cup of untouched tea rested beside him. Rain tapped softly against the glass. The storm had never truly left. Velen hesitated. Then, I saw it again. Oren's eyes lifted immediately. No confusion, no questions, only concern. The threads? Velen nodded. The old man's expression darkened. Tell me. So Velen did. The darkness, the silver pathways, the movement in the distance, the pulse, the feeling that something had been waiting, listening, watching. When he finished, Oren remained silent. The old clockmaker's hands tightened around the edge of the table. You must not follow it. The answer surprised him. Follow what? The dreams. They're only dreams. No. The response came too quickly, too sharply. Oren immediately regretted it. Velen could see it. The old man looked away. Toward the rain. Toward memories he clearly wished had remained buried. They begin as dreams. The words were quiet now. Heavy, careful. Then. They do not always remain dreams. A chill traveled through Velen. Before he could ask another question, a bell sounded somewhere within the hall. Not the city bells, not the clock bells. A different bell. Low, ancient, recognizable. The same bell that had announced the arrival of the Order. Orin closed his eyes. Slowly, wearily, as though he already knew what it meant. Far away, deep beneath the city, the pulse stirred once more, and elsewhere in the Spiral City, the Order had begun to move. The bell echoed through the hall of clockmakers. Low, ancient, patient. Its sound lingered long after the vibration faded. Velen watched Orin carefully. The old clockmaker had not moved. His gaze remained fixed upon the rain beyond the window. The city stretched away beneath gray clouds and drifting mist. Somewhere beyond those towers, the Order was already responding. Orin seemed to know it. Perhaps he always had. Far across the Spiral City, hidden behind layers of stone, memory, and secrecy, a door opened. The chamber beyond was enormous, older than any building visible above the streets. Its walls disappeared into darkness. Silver threads stretched between vast stone pillars. Thousands of them, perhaps millions, glowing softly in the gloom. They crossed overhead like constellations, a web of memory suspended within the darkness. At the center stood figures cloaked in midnight robes, motionless, silent, listening. No one had summoned them. No message had been sent. No order had been given. Yet they had all arrived, as though responding to a signal only they could hear. The pulse had awakened them. The chamber remained silent. No introductions, no greetings. None were necessary. The silver threads above them shimmered faintly, like stars reflected upon still water. Then one of the figures spoke. Its voice echoed softly beneath the vaulted ceiling. We felt it. The statement required no explanation. Another replied. We remember it. Across the chamber several heads turned. The words carried weight, meaning, history. The first speaker remained motionless. Then, the interval exceeds all recorded cycles. A pause. The pattern should remain dormant. The chamber fell silent once more. No one argued. No one questioned. The statement existed as fact. And yet, the pulse had returned. At the far end of the chamber stood a larger figure, its robes darker than the others, its glass mask completely smooth, featureless, reflecting only silver light. It had remained silent throughout the exchange, listening, observing, remembering. Finally it spoke. The moment its voice echoed through the chamber, every other figure became still, not because they feared it, because they respected it. The voice carried centuries. We have observed 3 awakenings. Silence. 2 are recorded. A pause. The 3rd is approaching. The silver threads overhead trembled. Not violently, subtly, as though reacting to the words. The chamber grew colder. Several figures lowered their heads. The ancient voice continued. The first awakening created the question. Another pause. The second created the fracture. The silver threads shimmered again. The chamber seemed to listen. Then, we do not know what the third will create. For the first time, uncertainty entered the room. A rare thing, perhaps the rarest thing. One figure stepped forward. Its voice remained calm, measured, collective. The clockmakers have felt it. The elder figure nodded. Yes. The city has felt it. Yes. The boy has felt it. At those words, the room became completely still. The elder figure did not immediately answer. For several moments, it simply stared upward toward the silver threads, toward the vast web stretched above them. Then quietly, more than felt, the chamber seemed to tighten around the words. The silver strands overhead glowed slightly brighter. A few flickered. Like distant stars, the elder voice lowered, almost to a whisper. He saw. Far above them, unaware of the conversation taking place beneath the city. Velen stood beside the workshop window, watching rain fall across the Spiral City, watching towers disappear into mist. feeling the strange pull growing somewhere beneath his thoughts, a feeling he could neither explain nor ignore, as though a thread had wrapped itself around his mind and was gently drawing him forward, toward something waiting in the dark. Deep below, the pulse echoed again. Stronger, closer. The silver threads within the hidden sanctuary trembled. The elder figure lifted its head, and for the first time in many generations, the Order considered the possibility that history was beginning to move again. The rain continued for 3 more days. Not violent storms, not thunder, just endless rain, soft, persistent, as though the sky itself had become lost in thought. The spiral city grew quiet beneath it. Mist clung to bridges. Water gathered in stone gutters. The distant towers appeared and disappeared like ghosts drifting through cloud. Life continued, but unease lingered. The pulse had become impossible to ignore. Every conversation eventually found its way back to it. Every rumor seemed connected. Every silence felt heavier than before. The city was waiting, though few understood what for. Velen found himself returning repeatedly to the Chamber of Echoes. At first, he told himself it was curiosity, research, investigation, the sort of thing any apprentice clockmaker would do. But he knew that wasn't true. Something was pulling him there. Something difficult to explain. The sensation felt similar to remembering half of a forgotten dream, a fragment always just beyond reach. The closer he came to understanding it, the further it seemed to retreat. Yet the feeling remained. Persistent, patient, waiting. The chamber was empty when he arrived, as it often was. The great circular room stretched away beneath silver light. Threads shimmered beneath the crystal floor. Millions of them, interwoven, endless, beautiful. The first time he had entered the chamber, it had felt mysterious. Now it felt alive. The difference unsettled him. Velen stepped carefully across the floor. The threads glowed softly beneath his feet, some bright, some faint, some pulsing so gently that he wondered if he imagined it. He knelt beside the crystal surface, studying them, watching, listening, waiting. Then he noticed something. One thread moved. Not dramatically, not enough for anyone else to notice. Just enough. A faint ripple traveled along its length. Then another. And another. The movement spread outward, thread to thread, like rain falling upon still water. Velen's heart quickened. The chamber had never done this before, at least not while he was present. The silver strands trembled. The light beneath the floor brightened slightly. A pulse, small, subtle, yet unmistakable. The same rhythm he had felt throughout the city. The same impossible heartbeat. Closer now, much closer. "You're not supposed to be alone." The voice came from behind him. Calm, quiet, unexpected. Velen spun around. Someone stood at the entrance to the chamber. Dark robes, glass mask, silver spirals woven into midnight cloth, rainwater still clinging to the cloak. One of the Order. The figure descended the steps slowly, measured, deliberate. Its footsteps echoed softly throughout the vast chamber, neither hurried nor hesitant, simply certain, as though it had always intended to arrive at this exact moment. Velen rose to his feet. His pulse quickened. Not fear, anticipation. Questions, always questions. "We have been looking for you." The familiar phrasing immediately caught his attention. Not, "I have been looking for you," but, "We..." The figure stopped several paces away. The silver threads beneath the floor reflected within its glass mask, making it appear as though stars moved behind the smooth surface. For several moments neither spoke. Then Velen folded his arms. "I wasn't aware I was lost." The response surprised the figure, or perhaps amused it. Difficult to tell. A faint tilt of the head. Nothing more. Then, "No." A pause. "We believe you are being found." The words struck him harder than he expected. Not because they made sense. Because they didn't. Yet some part of him felt they should. The chamber grew strangely quiet. The threads beneath the crystal floor continued their subtle movement. The figure watched them. then watched him. Then quietly, "You saw the pattern." It wasn't a question. Velen hesitated, then nodded. The figure remained still. "We hoped you had not." The answer hung heavily between them. For the first time since meeting the Order, Velen sensed something beneath their calm certainty. Concern, not for themselves, for him, and that frightened him far more than any threat could have. Far below the chamber, deep beneath stone, deep beneath memory, the pulse stirred once more. And this time, it answered. The chamber of echoes fell silent once more. Only the faint shimmer of silver light moved beneath the crystal floor. The Order figure remained motionless. Its glass mask reflected thousands of luminous threads, an entire universe trapped within smooth polished glass. Velen could not shake the feeling that he was being studied, not judged, measured, compared against something, some memory, some pattern. "You hoped I had not?" The words escaped him before he could stop them. The figure inclined its head, a small movement, barely noticeable, yet somehow full of meaning. "Yes." The answer came immediately. No hesitation, no uncertainty. Velen frowned. "Why?" The figure did not answer straight away. Instead, it looked down through the crystal floor, toward the threads, toward the silver currents flowing beneath the chamber. When it finally spoke, its voice had become quieter, almost reverent. "As children, we are taught to observe the pattern." A pause. "As students, we are taught to interpret it." The silver threads pulsed softly. The figure continued. "But there is a difference between observing the pattern." Its gaze lifted toward Velen, and being observed by it. A chill traveled down his spine. The words felt wrong. Dangerous, like a door opening where no door should exist. Velen folded his arms, trying to conceal his unease. "The pattern isn't alive." For the first time, the figure said nothing. The silence itself became an answer. Far below them, something pulsed. A slow vibration passed through the chamber floor. Barely perceptible, yet unmistakable. The silver threads brightened, then dimmed again, like a breath. The figure's attention shifted downward. It had felt it too. "We once believed the same." The statement was almost a whisper. Velen's eyes narrowed. What changed? The figure remained motionless. Then, the first awakening. The words echoed softly through the vast chamber. The title felt ancient, heavy, as though it carried centuries of fear. The keepers of the pattern believed reality could be mapped. The figure slowly turned, its robes whispering across the stone. Every movement, every choice, every possibility. They believed if enough observations were gathered, the pattern could be understood completely. The silver light beneath them shimmered, a web of impossible complexity. Beautiful, infinite. The figure lowered its head. They were wrong. For several moments, neither spoke. The chamber seemed larger now, the shadows deeper, the silence older. Velen looked once more at the endless threads. What happened? The answer came quietly. They looked too deeply. The pulse echoed again, stronger this time. The crystal floor vibrated beneath his boots. The silver threads brightened simultaneously. Thousands of them. Then millions. The entire chamber illuminated, a vast constellation beneath the city. For one terrifying moment, Velen thought he saw movement. Not within the threads, beyond them. Something deeper. Something hidden beneath the light. The vision vanished immediately, yet his heart continued racing. The figure had seen his reaction. Of course it had. We saw that expression before. Velen looked toward it. The masked face remained unreadable, featureless, yet somehow sorrowful. On whom? The question left his lips before he could stop it. The figure became completely still. Even the chamber seemed to listen. The pulse faded. The silence returned. Then, the one who asked. The word struck harder than anything else the figure had said. Velen's breath caught. The missing name, the first question, the forgotten person. For the first time, the mystery felt real. Human. Not history, not legend. A person. Someone who had stood where he now stood. Someone who had looked into the pattern. Someone who had seen too much. What did they see? The figure turned slowly toward the silver threads, toward the endless light beneath the floor, toward the hidden depths below the city. When it answered, its voice was barely audible. We do not know. A pause. Long, heavy. Then, but whatever they saw, the pulse echoed once more, deep, ancient, patient. The silver threads rippled outward in response. Like grass bending beneath invisible wind, the figure's voice lowered further, almost to a whisper. It asked a question that changed the world. Far below the chamber, deeper than the foundations, deeper than the oldest records, deeper than memory itself, something stirred. Not awake, not yet, but listening, and for the first time, it seemed aware that Velen was listening too. The pulse faded. Silence returned to the chamber. The silver threads settled beneath the crystal floor. Yet Velen could not shake the feeling that something had changed. Not in the city. Not in the chamber. In him. The sensation lingered like the fading echo of a bell, a vibration that refused to disappear. The masked figure remained beside him, motionless, watching the threads, watching the light, watching something Velen could not yet see. At last he spoke. What is this place? The figure turned slowly. The chamber? Velen nodded. I know what the clockmakers say it is. His gaze drifted across the vast circular room. The endless silver beneath the floor. The towering arches disappearing into darkness overhead. I want to know what it really is. The figure was silent for a long time. Long enough that Velen wondered if it intended to answer at all. Then, the chamber predates both the clockmakers and the order. The words echoed softly through the darkness. It was built by the keepers of the pattern. The silver threads pulsed faintly, a slow shimmer moving beneath the crystal, like moonlight across water. We believed it was an observatory. The figure's voice lowered. Many still do. A pause. We were wrong. Velen's attention sharpened immediately. The figure stepped forward, its reflection moving across the crystal floor, across the threads, across the endless web below. The chamber was not built to observe. Another pulse traveled through the silver strands, gentle, almost playful. The figure watched it carefully. Then, it was built to listen. The words settled heavily into the silence. Velen stared. The idea felt absurd, and yet, something inside him recognized it. The same feeling he had experienced during the pulse. The same feeling he had felt within his dreams. The same feeling that had drawn him back here again and again. Listen to what? The question barely escaped his lips. The figure looked down, far below the crystal, far below the threads, toward depths hidden by distance and darkness. When it answered, the voice seemed almost reluctant. We do not know. Again, the same answer, the same uncertainty. Yet this time it felt different. Not ignorance, humility, as though the mystery was simply too large. The pulse stirred. Closer now. The floor vibrated softly beneath Velen's boots. The silver strands brightened. Thousands of them. Then millions. The entire chamber shimmered, like starlight trapped beneath glass. And suddenly Velen understood something. Not fully, not completely. Just enough. The threads were not moving randomly. They were responding. His breath caught. The realization struck him with almost physical force. The pulse, the threads, the chamber, they were connected. They answer. The words escaped him. The figure slowly turned. For the first time since entering the chamber, it seemed surprised. Only slightly, but enough. Yes. The simple answer echoed through the room. Velen stared at the silver web beneath his feet. His pulse quickened. If they answer, he swallowed. The question suddenly felt dangerous, important, necessary. What are they answering? Silence. The chamber darkened slightly as clouds passed across the moon above. The silver light beneath the floor continued its slow, rhythmic glow. The pulse echoed once more, deep, ancient, patient, waiting. The figure lowered its head, almost in respect, almost in fear. Then quietly, "That is the question that ended the keepers of the pattern." The words seemed to ripple through the chamber itself. The silver threads brightened. For one impossible moment, Velen thought he saw them all turn, not downward, not outward, toward him. The vision vanished immediately. Yet the feeling remained, the sensation of being noticed, of standing at the edge of something vast, something ancient, something listening. And somewhere beyond the reach of memory, beyond the reach of history, beyond the reach of even the order, something listened back. The silence that followed seemed endless. The silver threads continued their slow rhythmic glow beneath the crystal floor. Pulse, silence. Pulse, silence. Like a heartbeat buried beneath the foundations of the world. Velen could not look away. The figure's words echoed within his thoughts. That is the question that ended the keepers of the pattern. The question. Always the question. Every road seemed to lead back to it. Every mystery, every record, every blank space, every fragment of forgotten history. The first question stood at the center of everything, like a shadow cast across centuries. The pulse echoed again. Stronger. The vibration traveled through the chamber floor, through Velen's boots, through his bones. The sensation was impossible to describe. Not pain, not sound. Recognition, as though some forgotten part of him understood it. The silver threads brightened, thousands of tiny lights awakening simultaneously. Then tens of thousands, then more. The chamber transformed. The floor disappeared beneath a sea of silver radiance. The threads stretched away in every direction, infinite, interwoven, alive. The masked figure stepped back suddenly. The movement was small, yet Velen noticed it immediately, for the first time since meeting the Order. The figure appeared uncertain. The chamber has never responded like this. Its voice had changed, still calm, but no longer completely controlled. The pulse answered. Stronger, closer. The threads trembled. Then the impossible happened. The silver web began moving, not a ripple, not a vibration. Movement, purposeful, deliberate. The luminous strands shifted beneath the crystal, slowly at first, then faster. Millions of threads twisting and weaving, rearranging themselves, forming something. Velen's breath caught. The figure stood motionless, watching. The chamber itself seemed to hold its breath. The threads gathered, separated, rejoined. A vast shape emerged beneath the floor, too large to comprehend, too large to see entirely. Only fragments appeared at a time. Curves, lines, spirals, patterns nested within patterns. Then Velen saw it. An eye. Not an eye of flesh, not human, not animal. A shape, a symbol, a pattern constructed entirely from silver threads, yet unmistakably resembling an eye staring upward from impossible depths. The vision lasted only a second, perhaps less. Then the threads collapsed. The shape dissolved. The chamber returned to normal. The silver web settled. The light dimmed. The pulse faded. Silence. Neither Velen nor the figure moved. For several moments they simply stood there, listening, waiting, trying to understand what they had witnessed. Finally Velen spoke, his voice barely more than a whisper. You saw it. Not a question, a statement. The figure remained motionless. Then, yes. Another long silence. What was it? Velen asked. The figure turned slowly toward him. The glass mask reflected the fading silver light. When it spoke, its voice carried something Velen had never heard before. Fear. We do not know. A pause. Then, but it saw us. The words settled heavily into the darkness. The chamber suddenly felt much larger, much older, much deeper. Far below the spiral city, beneath stone, beneath memory, beneath history itself, something had opened its eyes. And for the first time in countless generations, it had looked back.